I'm here with Dan Yuter, the Assistant State Attorney who heads the White Collar Crimes Division in Sarasota County, and we're going to be talking today a little bit about white collar crime pertaining to foreclosures and some of the real estate schemes that are out there right now. I guess, Dan, can you start off by just explaining a little bit about how these schemes work and some of the different variations of the scams you guys have seen over the years?
Sure. One of the scams that we were starting to see a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago to 2 years ago, we started seeing people taking over property in foreclosure or properties that were in default, and essentially assuming false ownership of those properties and then leasing them out under false ownership through quitclaim deeds. That was more during the period of time where we had a lot of foreclosures in the area. Now the real estate market seems to be picking up somewhat, and we're seeing different kinds of problems. Now, generally, in my opinion, it seems, a lot of times the real estate market goes in one direction and the rest of the economy tends to follow suit. So people are now having confidence in improving their homes and contracting to make improvements on their homes, and now we're seeing more problems on the contracting side of things, in which essentially they're contracting to make improvements, and these contractors are not complying or not fulfilling their end of the bargain. So we see sort of a trend with how the economy is doing, how the real estate market is doing, and what kind of schemes tend to be involved, follow suit with what's going on.
In our area here in Southwest Florida, given the demographics and affluence and everything, we tend to be a little more prone to these types of crimes, don't we?
Absolutely. And I do the white collar, but part of what I do too is elderly fraud against elderly citizens of Sarasota. And there's a sort of a unique combination of factors that we have in Sarasota. Sarasota is, out of the 67 counties in Florida, Sarasota has the 6th highest per capita income. We're right above, we're right below Palm Beach County, but we're above Hillsborough and Pinellas and Lee County and Brevard. So 6 out of 67 as far as the income that we have. And also we have one of the more elderly populations. We're 3rd highest percentage in Florida for people over the age of 65. And we're actually the highest in all of Florida. Our county, Sarasota County, is the highest percentage of people over the age of 85. So we have an elderly population and we have a fairly high per capita income, and that creates a sort of a perfect storm for people to commit these types of crimes in our area.
Why do you think, some of the elderly residents and some of the retirees that come here, why are they a little more apt to maybe falling for one of these scams than some of your other homeowners or citizens here?
Well, it could just be a matter of trust. They perhaps aren't as technologically savvy as some other people that can do the research and figure out if someone's licensed. I believe that I think that's historical. I think elderly people tend to be trusting and may not be able to do the background searches that maybe some younger people can, and some elderly people do have their capacity starts to diminish a little bit. So I think maybe they miss signs that somebody younger may pick up.
With that, and I know you mentioned, especially with the sort of housing swings we've had, that we've seen more of this. These type of scams and crimes can be a little problematic to investigate, and I know you guys don't do much investigative, but to prosecute sometimes as well, right? Why do you think that is, or what makes these scams sort of harder or different than some of the other crimes?
Well, I think that I might sort of be jumping ahead a little bit, but I think that ties into why my position exists. Prior to the white collar division, me being the sole prosecutor in Sarasota and Lisa Chitto being in Manatee County, these crimes were sort of absorbed into all the other felonies that our prosecutors would prosecute, which would include burglaries, violent crimes, robberies, aggravated batteries, those sort of matters. Those crimes tend to involve eyewitnesses, weapons, DNA, those sort of things. The cases that we prosecute, meaning Lisa and I, myself and Sarasota, are generally paper trail cases. and it's not something that is common in a lot of the other types of crimes I've just described. So you have to have some ability to understand which documents you're looking for. You have to be able to obtain those documents. You have to have an understanding of how and when those documents can be used in court. You have to be able to identify their significance, and basically, essentially ultimately prove to a jury who may not have the knowledge of how these cases work and what they're looking for. You have to be able to explain to a jury how this case is a crime. And then, of course, just like any other crime, the proof is beyond a reasonable doubt to prove. So, challenging, yes, if you haven't, don't have a background or don't have a concentration in this type of area, but certainly not impossible, and certainly something that we're now focused on prosecuting successfully.
How long have you guys been operating under the new white-collar crimes unit?
Ed Brodsky is our current state attorney. He's been our state attorney in office since 2013. That was one of the platforms that he ran on, was to have a dedicated white-collar division, prosecutors that concentrate solely on economic crimes, crimes against the elderly, and I actually do animal abuse cases as well. Those were some of the things that were important to people, our community, and that was something that he focused on, and he came through with that promise, and that's why my position exists. So we've only had this position for about a year and a half at this point, but I think it's been very successful.
One thing, we've seen sort of looking at some of these scams, not only here but across the state, is a lot of them now also are beginning to involve attorneys and lawyers. Why do you think we've seen sort of a rise in those, and what are some of the problems both on the consumer's end and sort of on your end when you have an attorney involved?
Well, one of the things that I get as far as what cases are assigned to me are cases involving licensures and being properly licensed to practice in whatever area that you need a license to practice in, and that can include medicine, that can include law, that can include being a massage therapist. I mean, every profession, not every profession, but many professions, include contracting cases, require proper licensing. And proper licensing and essentially certifications. So that again can be a paperwork intensive area to prosecute, and that would be the type of case I would be assigned. And with those types of cases, sometimes you're dealing with other professionals who may not come across as your average criminal, your criminal who commit a bank robbery or a aggravated battery or a burglary. I mean, this is someone who looks different, but it still potentially could be a criminal if the charges can be proven and there's a conviction in the case.
Your office doesn't necessarily play an investigative role, correct? But you do have to work with some of the local law enforcements. How does that relationship play into the success you have on cases involving white-collar crimes?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a big part of our success in prosecuting these types of crimes is working with, yes, law enforcement generally handles the investigation, but they also know that they have to have an eye towards a successful prosecution. And we know that we have to have an eye towards a successful investigation. So we do the best we can to work with law enforcement early on in order to make sure that the cases are investigated well. The evidence that would be admissible and relevant is provided. That everything basically goes well. So we, meaning the prosecutors, Lisa and I, we spend a lot of time working closely with law enforcement. We actually meet with them. We meet with local law enforcement agencies here, the Sheriff's Office, the Sarasota Police Department. We work with Venice. We work with Northport. And we work with agencies that are statewide, including the Department of Financial Services and the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. And they're generally located in Tampa, but I think they've got satellite offices throughout. So we try to meet. We're not able to do it every single month, but we try to meet every month. Both counties, Manatee and Sarasota, with as many law enforcement officers as we can. And we talk about the cases that are under investigation. And some cases, unfortunately, cannot be brought forth. But we do the best we can to make sure that everything is done correctly and everybody can help each other as far as providing resources and input and our levels of experience to each other in order to create a successful environment to prosecute these cases.
What's your typical day or workload look like? I mean, how many cases do you sort of average at a time, right? Can you explain a little bit of that?
I have about 70 to 80 cases right now currently, and they include everything from, businesses as victims to elderly people as victims to some of my animal cases. I don't really have an average day because I am the sole prosecutor in Sarasota, yet there's 3 judicial divisions. So I'm actually in front of all 3 judges because I handle all the cases that are assigned to me throughout the judicial divisions are basically separated by alphabet, and I have the whole alphabet. So I'm before all the judges, and I have to comply with all of their schedules. So I may spend part of my day in depositions. I may spend part of my day in court doing motions. I've got trials, of course. I interview victims and witnesses in cases. And of course, there's the very precious office time where I actually file pleadings and do paperwork within my office. But it is very, there is no average day because I'm responsible to be in all the courtrooms and the criminal courtrooms in Sarasota.
Do you have a background in white-collar crimes? How has being in this role for about a year and a half now sort of helped you, I guess, get better at what you're trying to do as a team?
Sure. My background is, I've been a prosecutor. I'm on my 12th year at the state attorney's office. I have been in the felony division since 2005. I worked within the capital child sex crimes in Manatee County from 2011 to late 2013. So I've actually been in this division for about 7 or 8 months. My predecessor, Erica Quartermain, is now a county court judge. So she was actually the first person in Sarasota to be part of this division. I took over from her when she got appointed to judge in December of 2013. I think one of the key points about this position is that the only cases I get are economic fraud cases. So we do try to, with all of our attorneys, we do try to keep an eye out for various trainings and seminars to send those attorneys to. And I've been to some myself, but a lot of the work is on the job training and having solely being assigned these types of cases. I think is about the best education you can get. I mean, you have to learn and be an expert in prosecuting these types of cases very quickly. That's been an immeasurable education as far as learning how to prosecute these cases, is really being solely assigned these types of cases.